A big hello and a very warm welcome. I'm Sonali Krishna, and as you can see, I'm joined today with a very, very august panel. I'm going to introduce them in just a bit. But just to give you a sense about what this conversation is going to be about, it's essentially going to be about today's complex media landscape. As all of you already are aware, today a marketer's job is almost nightmarish, simply because actual control has actually gone on to the consumer's hands. With the advent of social media, today consumers are allowed to voice their grouses, comment, give their opinions on anything and everything a brand does. Sometimes it's very constructive, but sometimes it can be absolutely destructive, as we have seen many cases in the past. Given such a scenario and the fact that this kind of consumer behavior is only going to escalate going forward, how do marketers ensure that, whatever the scenario, they still manage some kind of control over their brands so that the conversation is more constructive than destructive? And more importantly, how do you possibly build trust in such a difficult and complex environment? And, for that particular conversation, I have with me Shivakumar, a man who actually needs no introduction. He is the CEO of PepsiCo and a very, very seasoned marketer. He's been with Nokia before. We are also joined by Prashant Singh, Managing Director, South Asia of Nielsen. And last, of course, but not the least, we have Mr. Sharad Sharma. He's the co-founder and the governing council member of iSPIRT Foundation. With that, I'm going to open the floor first to Prashant to talk about consumers today and how they behave.
What I'm going to try and talk about is break down trust as to why is it important and how does it get built and what are probably some of the things that we could do about it. So we'll try and get into the nitty-gritties of trust. What builds trust? There are 4 steps of building trust. The first step is really the foundations of a particular brand. Origin of the brand, whether it is a local brand or an MNC, again, is important, and that comes next. Brand communication actually comes in third, and then finally, a concept which has been picked up more in the last 6 to 7 years is what is the purpose of the brand. So first of all, if we talk about foundations, the top 3 aspects that consumers state are most important to them, and these are Indian consumers, so value for money comes first, no surprises, quality of the brand, and then safety of the brand. As we move up to the second tier, brand origins become important. And if you think about it, consumers feel a little differently about non-food brands, so personal care, personal care and home care and durables brands, and very differently about food brands. So generally speaking, for non-food or for personal care brands, consumers prefer multinational brands. And the primary reason being, they feel innovative products come more for the multinational companies. When it comes to food though, and there are two exceptions there, soft drinks and chocolates. When it comes to food, consumers prefer local brands a lot more. One word of caution here. Just because the framework looks like this doesn't mean that a multinational brand has a less chance of succeeding in food as compared to personal care or home care. It also depends on how the communication and how the history of the brand has been built in the company, because many of the consumers can't distinguish if a brand is from a multinational house or from a local company, from an Indian company, if the brand has made its values, has made its history in the country well. Let's move to the point where we probably spend most of our time, which is brand communication. And the top 3 aspects there, first of all, is word of mouth. Right? Before advertising, before anything from experts, word of mouth continues to be the first and foremost aspect that the consumers look for. When it comes to trust, editorials, blogs, reviews, reading from an expert comes second, and then advertising obviously is number 3. In a host of variables. The one thing that does not work is SMS advertising. Consumers are extremely, and this came out across all segments of consumers, we found that all the SMSs that you get, and I'm sure each one of you get tons of them every week, that's one thing that consumers just don't trust. And then finally, the last leg of brand trust building is purpose and social responsibility. Brands that demonstrate commitment to move beyond the consumer's basket into consumers' lives end up winning in a particular market. And we've seen it from both angles. Consumers saying, and we've seen 85% of consumers feel that they're willing to actually pay more for a brand that is more socially responsible. So how do we build trust, and especially from a communication and talking points to the consumer perspective? The three things that I'm going to leave you with is, first of all, brand values is something that consumers feel that's the big communication that they resonate with. When it comes to our advertising, when it comes to our brand communication, messaging, brand value is something that they are extremely passionate about. Personal stories as against pure play advertising and jingles, and then having some sort of a family orientation. India continues to be still a fairly conservative society, fairly family-oriented society, and therefore, when it comes to the crux of messaging that resonates with consumers, these are the three broad messages that resonate. Thank you.
Thanks, Prashant, and thanks for keeping time. We'll now move to Sharad Sharma, who's going to, I believe, shake this audience a little bit, and of course shake the panelists as well. So over to you, Sharad. Let's get some provocation going.
So up till now, there has been only one way of building trust, and that way of building trust was messaging, marketing. Today, I would submit to you that there is another way of building trust, and that is technology, design, and that is equally important. I would, Sonali would want me to say that it is more important and the old way is going to die, and I tend to believe that may be the case, but just to be polite to everybody here on the panel, I won't say that. But the fact of the matter is that there is another way, and this is a very, very powerful way. Now, why is this important? It is important because we all know we have very large underserved market that remains in India, and that will only be possible to serve if we embrace technology in a way that we don't think of embracing today. And ultimately, Facebook is a powerful brand. They haven't used the old way of marketing, quote-unquote marketing, to build that brand. Same is the case with Airbnb. The same is the case with many of the other brands that are there. So we have to figure out and develop this new path. So why is it difficult to do? It is difficult to do because whenever anything new comes, you have to unlearn. And there is an unlearning involved here, which all of us have to embrace. And if we don't embrace that unlearning, we will not learn the new thing. And the unlearning is, I'm not here to tell you that the brand is unimportant. I'm here to tell you that brand is a byproduct of building trust. What we have to unlearn is the idea that building trust, there is an act of messaging, or even for that matter, the new buzzword around that is conversation, right? Maybe it's not one-way talking, it's two-way talking. It's even more than that. And more than that is to build a paradigm where you can actually hold people accountable for the promises that they make. Today, that is what creates trust in Airbnb. That is what creates trust in Uber. Because you have a way at scale to be able to hold people to their promises that they make. That is what creates trust. And that is possible to now do in a very big way. We tend to outsource this. In the case of food, we outsource this to a regulator. So the regulator's trust kind of cascades into the trust of the brand. We've traditionally done this in many other ways, and today all that is going to change. Why is this going to change? And I want to end on that note. It is going to change because I suspect, let's do a show of hands. How many of you here don't have an Aadhaar number? I see only one hand going up. It's going to change because of that. Because today you can walk into a place, you can sign up for a new SIM, in under 2 minutes. Because somebody starts off by saying, okay, I know who you are. I know you are Mohit. And I know that for a fact. So on that note, thank you so much.
We have Shivakumar, who is going to end the speaker session before we open it up for a panel discussion.
The first thing I want to mention is that trust is an unusual value. It's deeply emotional. Okay? It's deeply emotional. It's very much like the trust you have in your friend, the trust you have in society, the trust that you have in colleagues. It's absolutely emotional. At one level, trust, there is a reality to it. But at another level, there's a perception which drives that reality and feeds that reality. Both are important. So trust is just not a pure economic measure or a rational measure. Equally, trust is not a purely emotional measure. It's actually a combination of both. Okay? And especially in products, services, relationships, both matter. And I'll explain to you what those factors are. If you look at trust, trust is an absolute critical asset that comes in handy, especially in tough times. The most important thing about trust is that it is an asset driven by behavior and not by knowledge, not by strategy, not by thinking, not by words. Okay, you can say all this, but if the behavior of the organization, if the behavior of society, or the country, or the CEO, or the employee does not add up, then there is no trust. So trust is not about words, it's much more about behavior and action. Trust is at an all-time high in 2016 right now, across the world. Ever since the Great Depression, trust is at its all-time high. And this is measured by Edelman every single year. They measure trust in NGOs, they measure trust in private enterprise, they measure trust in government, and they measure trust in media. They measure trust in business. Okay, that agglomeration is at its highest. They measure it as two components: people who are completely informed and involved, and the larger population, which is society. Okay, that's what they look at every single year. So today, it's at its highest in 2016 across the world. What are the benefits of having trust as a company or a brand? Number one, they buy your brand from the company. If the company is a trusted company, whoever it is, they buy your brand. Big benefit. Second, they start recommending it to friends. Third, they share online liberally their views on the brand of the company. Fourth, they defend the company when the company needs it. Fifth, they pardon the company when the company needs it. And sixth, they buy shares in the company. So this is the outcome of trust of society and individuals and consumers in a corporation or in a brand. These are the benefits that you get. By definition, automatically, if you don't have trust, exactly the opposite happens. What we are recognizing is that digitally engaged businesses have higher levels of trust than physical business. And I was thinking about this for some time now to say, why is this so? From a consumer point of view, if you put yourself in the consumer's shoes, why would you trust digital businesses and digital business models more than physical business models? I take 4 reasons for this. Number one, when you are a digital business, you've taken out the intermediary completely. In the past, if you went, the shopkeeper's word was more important. So when we take out the intermediary, we don't need that person. Number one. Second, digital business, the information is available freely. So I have access to all the information that I need before I make a choice as a consumer. Second, I have other people's views digitally. It's just not my view. I have other people talking about the business and telling me what they think of it. And finally, this is a two-way. I know whom to reach out to in case I have a problem. In a physical business model, I don't know whom to reach out to. In a digital world, I know at the click of a button, I can write to you, I can hold you accountable, and I can challenge. These are the reasons consumers trust digital businesses far more than they trust physical business in today's world. Okay? So, food for thought. What are the sources of trust for consumers? Today, the sources of trust are search engines. Whichever search engine people go to, that's a huge source of trust. Okay? Whenever you have an argument, somebody says, okay, I will go to a search engine and I'll give you the answer. We trusted blindly. Okay, so that's the biggest source of information for them, the source of trust. Second is traditional media. Third is online media, and fourth is social. These are their levels of trust right now. This is where they're picking up the source and saying, I believe this more than I believe anything. Next, whom do they trust? Number one, friends and family. They trust friends and family more than anybody else, number one. Number two, they trust an academic expert. That's 65% of the time. Number three, they trust a company employee. Here's the interesting part. They trust the company employee ahead of the CEO of the company. Think about it. The CEO of the company ranks 49%. The employee of the company is 55%. So the two brand ambassadors of a company are actually the employees and not the CEO. Okay, so they trust the company CEO. Journalists, 44. Online personalities, 37. And celebrities, actually 32. This is how trust is developing right now as the world becomes more and more digital. Every product, every service, okay, is a promise. When you consistently exceed it, you get more trust. When you consistently deplete it, you lose trust. Okay? So whatever your promise, you have to exceed it. You cannot say, this is my promise, I'll just about meet it. That's not how trust is earned. Okay? You have to beat the expectation. So those are the dimensions of trust that we see around us today. I'm absolutely sure that as more and more countries and more societies become more and more digital, we'll see even bigger swings in the way people look to trust and look to CEOs, look to companies, look to brands for trust. Thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure doing this for you.
Thanks very much, Shiv. And with that, we're going to open this panel up for discussion, and I invite all of you to also join in. I just want to start with, what the topic was for today. I ask you, Shiv, as one of the leading marketers of the country, and as a seasoned professional who's gone through a lot of ups and downs when it comes to brands, how do you think life is different for you given the advent of social media, given the fact that today anybody can abuse you openly on social media and of course praise you, but as we've noticed, the behavior of consumers on social media is broadly that of nitpicking. They very rarely, would compliment, but they're very quick to criticize.
I wouldn't say that. I think consumers, by and large, in a social world, are far more demanding than ever before. As I mentioned when I was talking, when you are a digital business, they know that they can reach out to you. If they can reach out to you, they believe that they have the intrinsic right to absolutely engage and talk with you. We've always said in marketing that the consumer is king. Very few marketers ever said the consumer has a voice. Now today the consumer has a voice. And I believe Indian consumers are quick to appreciate and equally quick to challenge you.
Prashant, if you can, dissect for me broadly how consumers today behave on social media, because a lot of times the situation is real, a lot of times it's actually imagined. So given that kind of control and given that kind of trigger-free kind of attitude that consumers have today only because they can, how do you suggest marketers respond to it, and of course a little bit a little background on how they're behaving today?
And so I completely agree with Shiv that consumers are quick to praise as well as talk negatively about the brand. But when we look at the probability of a consumer praising a brand in case of a positive experience, that's minuscule as compared to the probability of a consumer kind of flogging a brand. That's much higher probability. And whether the consumer is taking a trivial matter and making it into a large matter, or it is a genuine complaint, you have to take care of both with the same amount of seriousness.
Gentleman there with a question. I'll take your question now.
Fine. And there is a wonderful brand which was, long back having in every Indian's pocket, which has failed miserably, and new products have came into the market, and that brand probably you are more aware and more relevant to you, particularly the Nokia, which probably failed because of what? It is because of breach of trust within the organization, or between the consumer and the producer. Kindly explain.
The key thing was the industry moved to operating system mode. And in the operating system mode, you had Android at 83% share, you had iOS at 12 to 14 share, and you had Windows at 3 to 4 share. Nokia picked Windows as the main operating system, and hence limited itself in its potential to that 4 percentage points. That was the big challenge and the direction.
We have a dilemma when you said about the purpose of a company is to create the wealth for shareholders, to make profits, and as a society, you said to build a purpose. So there is one angle where we actually start with a company vision objective and then you go to create a purpose. Most of the time, when you create a purpose in your own vertical, when Lifeboss says that, okay, I'm dying for hygiene, or when, for example, we work on the lighting and road safety, we can go in that angle and say, okay, we create a purpose. The other way, like everything will be the community without a CEO or without a profit or without this intention, you have a dilemma of what you should do. Should you work on the CSR, which is into your area of expertise, or you completely go out to another area where people will not doubt you? Should you invest money in communication to justify what you are doing, or should you completely change track and do something very different which society values you, and then the trust is built up?
I think it's a very valid question, given that all communication today looks like all companies are NGOs. So, well-drafted question. Shiv, why don't you take it about purpose-led communication?
Yeah. So I would always advocate that the first thing is you should do what is within the company and the adjunct of the company. So for example, if I take a PepsiCo example, we do a lot of work with farmers. We are one of the largest buyers of potato, sugar, etc. So it's natural for us to invest a lot more in farmers and making them far better with technology and innovation. And in that sense, the government's policy of saying they want to double farmer incomes in 5 years, we could be a part of that to help. Equally, nutrition is a journey that we are committed to. Okay, and that is something in India which is of great value. So I would say, see what your company does, and if you can find activities around that, that's the best way to build your purpose and hence gain credibility. Society is another matter. Society does not want to denude any of its minerals or ecology or whatever it is. So you have to be extremely careful in every plant or every place you operate to ensure that you're absolutely fair in dealing with society. Equally, you have to be absolutely fair and sincere in dealing with your employees and ecosystem, all your suppliers, etc. Those are the people who will give you a lot more trust based on what your purpose is.
And on that note, let me invite Chris Parsons to give the concluding remarks for this session.
The nice thing about a consumer session is it affects all of us personally, which is why there was such great audience interaction. I guess there were lots and lots of takeaways here from Shiv, Sonali's questions, Prashant and Sharad. I guess the one thing that wasn't quite picked up was just the whole issue around aspiration and aspirational brands, whether it's buying a Pepsi drink, which might happen to cost more than thumbs up, but people drink it because it's aspirational, or buying a Louis Vuitton bag rather than another bag that might be produced elsewhere in the world. I did want to just mention one specific thing. I've known Shiv a little while now, and Shiv is famous for many things, but for me, in the context of AIMA, the reason he's most famous was encouraging Shah Rukh Khan to come to a session a few years ago. And if our friends from India could explain who Shah Rukh Khan is to our Chinese guests, that would be good. But I remember Shiv saying to me, Chris, when Shah Rukh Khan comes onto the stage, watch the effect that he has on the women. And I said, and Shiv was absolutely right, but only half right, because in my experience, Shah Rukh Khan had the most extraordinary effect on everybody in the room. So my suggestion in relation to brand values and trust is that we need to bottle a little bit of Shah Rukh Khan and sell that to everyone. So please join me in thanking the panel today.